This commander was released in 2017, and after an initial spike in deck building popularity, it quickly went to the wayside, and now the deck building has more or less sputtered to a complete halt. And to demonstrate this deck has only about 1,600 on EDHREC, and when you compare that with a newer release such as Miram, well, you sort of get the picture. And to top it off, we're likely not going to be getting a better Sphinx tribal commander. This is it. Unesh is incredibly good at what he does. And that can be sort of infuriating because on the initial deck building spike in 2017, this commander left a lot of people with a bad taste in their mouth. You see, this second ability here, which is essentially a mini fact or fiction with Unesh, allows you to run plenty of stacks pieces in your deck, either locking people out of drawing altogether or playing a possessed portal effect, preventing people from drawing on their draw step, and that drives the game to a complete halt. And Unesh, as long as it sticks on the board, is all you need. It's an incredible engine that gets the job done, allowing you to lock everybody else out of the game. And that can be really infuriating to play against if we're being honest. It also means that many people will never come back to this commander and give it another chance because of the implications that it brings along with it from the initial builds in 2017, but it can be so much more. Give me just a few minutes to tell you my story about this commander, why I love it so much, and some new cards that have come out that make this commander absolutely lethal without having to lock other people out of the game, all for $100 if that interests you. So let me take you back approximately 2 years ago. I actually didn't even have this channel in mind at that time, and realistically, I was still learning the game, and I was getting quite bored with the existing sort of tribal builds like elves and that sort of thing. So I began looking for alternative tribal commanders, and sure enough, Unesh presented himself. The problem is, Sphinxes aren't really the sexiest. Dragons have this mythical lore, elves have this deep Tolkien sort of stigma and lore backing them, which enlivens your play experience, and zombies were really boosted by the modern phenomena at the time, such as The Walking Dead. So I didn't really build it. I didn't think it was cool enough, and I moved on. In fact, I actually went on to become a filthy combo player, and I'm still in active recovery. In order to speed that process along, you just have to like this video. The more likes it gets, the faster I can get out of that hellscape. And I'm an active and avid reader, so I got into the Amonkhet lore block, which is totally free to read right online, and I was reading about Jace's time in Amonkhet before his spark got ignited, and the remainder of his story is extremely pertinent to the remainder of this video. Now, I'm going to gloss over certain details. I just want to give you my retelling, the things that I thought were cool about the story and how I remember it, because it's why I built this commander in the first place. It's all the cool stuff that I got from the story. So Jace is an aspiring magical youth, and he's currently receiving tutelage from Alhammaret, who is a Sphinx who's acting as this sort of intermediary between multiple warring factions, sort of staving off an all-out conflict. And Jace learns from the Sphinx for many years, and for the first time in his life, he's feeling more welcome, and he feels like he's sort of progressing. But this changes when he realizes that his memories are incomplete. In fact, he has gaps in his memory, and this is after he sort of weaves his way into Alhammaret's mind, and he gets his memory wiped again. So he begins to write things down in order to recall them for future events such as this one. You see, Alhammaret has been controlling everyone's mind, not just Jace's, and by doing so, he is modifying memories and deleting them as he sees fit. And Jace is no different. There is a sudden, obvious, and terrifying reason why war seems constantly inevitable in Amonkhet, but always a non-occurrence. Jace is just a victim in this dark ploy from the Sphinx. And so he prepares himself for his biggest challenge, defeating Alhammaret, freeing himself and the others from the mental shackles that were imposed on them. So Jace dives into a mental battle with the Sphinx, and it turns into a multi-day conflict of excruciating proportions where one slip would now certainly mean death for either party. And Jace knows this. Before, he was easy to control, but now his spark is ignited. And at this point, Alhammaret understands too that if he lets Jace get away with this, he, in some way, some capacity, will do this again. He must kill Jace. It's to the death. But it seems like Jace is going to slip. He's going to succumb to the darkness, and his mind will be lost forever. But the Sphinx has a momentary lapse in his mental palace, and Jace uses this opportunity to intrude on his mind. And while he's there, he literally removes the knowledge of how to breathe from the Sphinx's mind, which, as you can imagine, means that Alhammaret is dead. and will no longer be a concern to the people of Amonkhet again. And Jace, not only is he finally free to leave, he finally starts his journey with his spark ignited. And I probably got some sections wrong here, but like, my God, reading that reveal for the first time, going through and understanding that actually, yeah, Jace thinks he is complicit in all of this, but really he's just puppeted by Alhammarret, and he is just subjected to whatever the Sphinx so chooses. I thought that that was just gold. And that story element right there really sold me and made me decide, yes, I am going to build a Sphinx deck. But unfortunately, I'm not going to build Alhammarret because it's really not that good. But Unesh, on the other hand, is a perfect fit for what I want. And of course, I needed a few parameters in place. I didn't really want a high-powered competitive list. I just wanted to have fun within a budget, and that also meant no stacks pieces or anything like that. I didn't want to push other people out of the game like the initial builds in 2017 were doing. That's just a miserable way to play in my experience, and I don't want to subject others to that. And 3, I still want this commander to be strong. I want this commander to sort of do the thing and feel like a powerful threat at the table, despite the fact that I'm not running the most optimized combos in this deck. So let's go ahead and break down my favorite cards, why I've included them, and also some fun stories about a few select pieces and certain Sphinxes that you've literally never seen before. So let's get right into that. So first up on the docket is this little guy, Conspiracy Unraveler. Now this just came out in the Murders of Karlov Manor set, and this was another reason as I was sort of looking to make this deck that I went, this is really broken, and I think that I need to include this. I got the cool invisible ink version of it because it was like just $1.50 or something crazy like that. And it is a 7 mana 6/6 flyer, and you can collect evidence 10 rather than pay the mana cost of spells that you cast. Why is that good? Well, let me tell you. This card effectively goes semi-infinite in an Unesh deck. And that's because you are building this deck, at least I built this deck, with the intent of having as many Sphinxes as possible. And the collect evidence mechanic literally says you can exile cards out of your graveyard with a mana value of 10 or greater to cast a spell instead of paying its actual mana cost. It's an alternative casting condition that the Conspiracy Unraveler gives you. So what ends up happening is that you play this card while Unesh is on the battlefield. You trigger Unesh to basically do a mini Factor Fiction, and then you continuously dump your necessary mana value of spells into the graveyard, and then in an effort to continuously collect evidence over and over again to cast your next Sphinx. So when this card has been out, and I have maybe like 20 CMC of spells, which is only about 4 cards in this deck, by the way, because most Sphinxes are 5 or greater mana. That means that I effectively will go through about half of my deck, because if I have a few Sphinxes in my hand, enough to get started in the graveyard, I can basically go through about half of my deck and play out as many Sphinxes as I want until I finally brick on the Unesh ability. But even then, I can still sort of find ways to keep going. And most of the time, people understand that if they don't sort of interact with this, the game is mostly over unless there's a board wipe of some kind. And I think that that's just incredible. This card being like $1 and Unesh being like also $1. It's basically like $2 plus some 25-cent Sphinxes, and you get a basically semi-infinite combo. And I'm more of a fan of those because infinite combos, I feel like they have a negative connotation stapled to them. Like, people know them. They've seen them played out. When people see this, they go, oh my God, what is happening? What are you doing? I'm actually just playing my deck, and I'm utilizing the fact that these Sphinxes are crazy mana values, and you, my friend, get to do another Factor Fiction to decide which Sphinx I get to cast next. So it's been a lot of fun. It definitely takes longer in terms of turns, but overall I've been very happy with it. And I think that if you're building an Unesh deck, you absolutely must have this card. Very inexpensive as of right now. I'd pick one up if you're looking to build this deck. It turns out that scrying 3 at the beginning of the game is actually really, really good. Sphinx of Foresight is a 4 mana, 4/4 flyer, and it says that you may reveal it from your opening hand. If you do, scry 3 at your first upkeep. And remember, it goes untap, upkeep, draw, meaning you get to scry 3 before your first draw. It's so good. And on top of that, when it's played out at the beginning of your upkeep, you scry 1. And a hidden sort of value of this card is that Unesh is reducing the cost of your Sphinxes by 2, and this is 2 generic mana and 2 blue, meaning that you're actually going to be casting this just for 2 blue. So for 2 blue, you get a 4/4 flyer that triggers a mini factor fiction that oftentimes if this ends up in your first hand, you're ecstatic about it because scrying 3 at the beginning is incredible. This card is actually really good. I think that, in terms of value and in terms of like the Sphinxes you're going to be putting in your deck, this card does a lot, especially if you manage to get it in the opening hand. I wouldn't specifically mulligan for it, but I'm always happy to see it in my opening hand. It smooths out the game so much. Like there's been multiple times when I've had this and I go, okay, scry 3, I look at it and I just would have bricked for 3 turns in a row, because you have to remember we're playing tons of spells for 5 mana in this deck. So you need to sort of find ways to dig and get to the things that are maybe more low in the CMC or your ramp options so you can build up to spells like this. So wouldn't play it without it. Definitely recommend this guy. Nothing feels better than punishing the Is It player at the table, and that's what our friend here, Dazzling Sphinx, will do. For 5 mana, you get a 4/5 flyer, good stat line, and whenever it deals combat damage to a player, that player exiles cards from the top of their library until they exile an instant or sorcery, and then you can cast it for free. Then the exiled cards that weren't cast go on the bottom of the owner's library. It would have been even crazier if it exiled, but we don't need all that. This card has got me extra turn spells. It's got me all sorts of ramp options like Kodama's Reaches and Cultivates of the like, and it's recurable. You can keep doing this turn after turn if it doesn't get removed, and people find this card, oddly, I don't know why, more scary than your commander who's sort of triggering this. I think it's because people don't like having things thieved or taken from their deck. So Dazzling Sphinx takes the heat away, and it's only a 3 mana Sphinx at the end of the day because of the cost reduction anyway. So this card has done some heavy lifting for me. It helps me get to further turns by ramping me. It oftentimes will hit a draw spell and draw me. And in best case scenarios, you just take people's extra turn spells and you essentially win the game after that. So really good card. I've had a lot of success with it. Can't recommend it enough. We should really take this moment to talk about how the defilers work in MTG, because I've seen them misplayed so many times. So I wanted this one in here. It's the Defiler of Dreams. It's a Sphinx. It's probably one of the only places you're going to see this card played, because having it reduced to 3 mana makes it extremely viable all of a sudden. And it's a 4/3 flyer. As an additional cost to cast blue permanent spells, you may pay 2 life. Those spells cost 2 less to cast if you paid life this way. It only reduces the amount of blue mana that you pay. So this is an added sort of cost to the spell, meaning you can pay life instead of the blue mana. But what I see people doing all the time is they're like, oh yeah, I'm going to go ahead and pay 4 life to pay for both of the blue pips. It doesn't work like that. You can only pay for 1 of the blue pips. I looked this up. I was the one making an error like this. And on top of that, I've seen other people making this error. I was corrected. That is how this works. So in order to, moving forward, play this correctly, make sure that you're only paying for 1 of the blue pips. Now, it's still really good because not only does it cost reduce by just you paying life, it also nets you card draw whenever you cast a permanent. And we have like 30 Sphinxes in here. We're casting blue permanents left and right. This card plus something like the Conspiracy Unraveler basically helps you just go infinite in a faster, more efficient way. Really good card. Just keep in mind that text that says, as an additional cost, you have to pay life instead of the blue pip. It's not multiple blue pips, it's 1. This guy was never really popular to begin with. It was cheap. It was like $1 before the reprint, and now it's like 20 cents, and that's Dream Eater. And it's because it probably only ever goes in an Unesh deck, but it goes hard in an Unesh deck. So I'd highly recommend it. It's 6 mana for a 4/3 Nightmare Sphinx, by the way. It has flash, so you can play it on other people's turns and flying. When it ETBs, you surveil 4, and when you do, you may return target non-land permanent an opponent controls to its owner's hand. So many times this card has really overperformed for me, either by returning somebody's mana rock to their hand before the next turn, or returning a problem piece or a combo piece at flash speed, even without the cost reduction. And you also get the Surveil 4, which is better than it sounds. I think just having card selection in general is a strong thing to have in MTG, but having it stapled onto a relatively good body and removal is really great. This card, I've pretty much always been happy with it when I played it, and I'm always happy to see it in my hand. Because even if I don't have a problem piece to remove from my opponents, I still get my Surveil 4, allowing me to just sort of select the top of my deck. And again, it combos with Conspiracy Unraveler because you fuel your graveyard with those bigger threats if you don't want them. It's really good. I can't recommend enough. I feel like I'm just like a broken record. I can't recommend it enough. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Sphinx of the Second Sun. I mean, it's going back up in price. Now is probably a good time to get it. This guy right here, I remember being like, I don't know, $5 to $10 or something like that. But it's only like $1 right now or something like that. And at the beginning of your post-combat main phase, by the way, there's an additional beginning phase. So everybody misplays this. They always take it on like the wrong time or whatever. It's your post-combat main phase. You get another beginning phase. So it's just a generically good Sphinx, and getting the additional untap upkeep draw is really good. It's more like a value piece in this deck. Like, it doesn't do anything crazy outside of that. Like the new Obeka that gives you multiple upkeeps and whatever. There's not a lot of upkeep triggers in this deck. It's more so just for the value. I still think it's a reasonable include, even though it's very expensive. But I think that just the additional untap is really the big deal. Being able to have more blue mana to cast more Sphinxes is really the crux of this card and why it's actually good. So I think that if you're looking to build it, I would pick it up now, because I think it's going to slowly creep back up in price just because it was initially quite expensive, and I don't see them reprinting it a lot unless there's specifically like an upkeep commander like Obeka again or something like that. But before we move on to some of the cards that I actually really like and I have some cool stories stapled onto, I want to talk about a card that's probably going to get cut at my next convenience, because Elegith is sort of like a box standard Sphinx that everybody knows. It turns your scrying into drawing, which sounds really good. And it is really good if that is the main purpose of your deck. But when you have very minimal scrying capabilities in this deck to begin with, Elegith is more often just a beater. It's just a 5/6, and the only time I'm ever happy to see it is when it's in the graveyard, so I can get rid of it with Conspiracy Unraveler, really. And as you'll see how I've built the deck, I have a subtle blink package, which maybe we should talk about right now. And this card doesn't at all in any way really connect with that. It doesn't add any synergy to the deck. This is definitely the biggest flop, I would say, in the entire deck, and it's going to come out sometime in the near future. I might even just take it out now and replace it with a different piece, even just a blink spell, because I'd be happier with it, honestly. But let's talk about the blink spells. So I brought out a few here, as you can see. So we have effects such as Displace, Ghostly Flicker, and Illusionist Stratagem. So I went with some of the heavier costed ones, and why is that? So this deck in general is expensive. We have expensive Sphinxes, like the creatures. We have expensive mana rocks. It's just a very expensive deck, and I never expect to play it at any higher sort of power tier. It's a $100 budget deck after all. I'm not going to bring it at a competitive table in any sense. So all of these blink spells blink multiple creatures at one time. I did that purposefully. I wanted to get extra value off of Unesh when I blinked my Sphinxes, because remember, it's not on cast. Unesh only cares about a Sphinx entering the battlefield. And I also wanted something that would either replace itself, like Illusionist Stratagem that draws you a card, or at least has the capability to blink 2 Sphinxes, allowing you to then proceed to get the double up. You get multiple mini factor fictions. And I've been quite happy with them so far. I think as long as you play around knowing that you're going to need about 3 mana saved up, or 4 mana in some cases, it's pretty easy to do in this deck because of the cost reduction that Unesh gives you. And these cards have put in some serious work. Being able to factor fiction twice for 3 mana, it's pretty disgusting. And you can also save these up as a protection spell if you needed it. So they really put in a lot of work, and I think that I'm quite happy with it. I'm not going to change them out. If anything, I am hoping that they would print something else to blink multiple creatures to put in this deck to get even more value off of it. I love little mini games in my Commander games, and Master of Predicaments is just absolutely great for that. So this is a 5 mana 4/4 flyer, and whenever it deals combat damage to a player, you choose a card in your hand, my hand, and then that player, the player that I dealt damage to, guesses whether the mana value is greater than 4. If they get it wrong, I get to just cast it for free. And it's always hilarious because people all the time don't want you to get the value off of it being greater than 4. So I feel like a lot of time people just say, oh yeah, it's greater than 4 because there's so many cards in here. But really, all I wanted to do was cast a free blink spell for free, or maybe cast another, mana rock or something like that for free. So it starts to throw people off and quickly descends into madness as people try to understand my reasoning for why I chose the card that I did. It's like, why pick the Soul Ring when you have like the crazy Sphinx in your hand? It's because I'm trying to mind game you, Kevin. It's because I'm trying to mind game you. Speaking of sort of mind games, I love this card, which is Sphinx Ambassador. I haven't had really a lot of a chance to use it, and that's because it's actually a pretty brutal effect. You see, it's a 7 mana 5/5, and when it deals damage to a player, combat damage, search that player's library for a card. Then that player names a card. If you search for a creature that is not the named card, you may put it onto the battlefield under your control. Then that player shuffles their library. So you are basically either deleting a card out of their deck like a combo piece, or you're trying to get some crazy hit out of their deck. And I'm always fiending to hit like the Reanimator player or something like that when this comes out. But everybody immediately freaks out when they see it because they think it's going to be some back-breaking effect. But really, it's more of like a value piece or disruption in some way. That's overcosted, to be honest with you. 7 mana for that effect is pretty extreme when there's a lot of other cards that do it for much cheaper, and we don't run those to begin with. I think it just fits in this deck because, well, it's Sphinx Tribal, and it makes sense to be in here. If I had to cut anything for monetary reasons, it would probably be this one, because this guy is like $7 for a light play copy, and it's because it's only been printed one time. If you want to have it in your deck, honestly, I would say just proxy it, because you're never going to use it anywhere else, maybe outside of a Reanimator deck. But again, there's better targets than this. So I don't know. I think that if you're looking for monetary places to save, this would probably be it. Here's the Sphinx himself, Alhamaret. So this guy is a 7 mana 5/5, and when it enters the battlefield, each opponent reveals their hand. You choose the name of a non-land card revealed that way. Your opponents cannot cast spells of the chosen name as long as he remains on the battlefield. I'll be honest, I mostly put it in here just because there's not quite enough good Sphinxes, and it's good enough to sort of shut off key strategies in my opponents, but it really hasn't done anything fantastic. It's not mind-blowingly good. I mean, it's 7 mana for a 5/5 that just shuts off one card. There's been maybe 1 or 2 instances where it's been really good, where I've totally blocked somebody from playing, but even then, it feels a little bit bad because I'm preventing somebody else from playing the game. I don't know. It's mostly in here because it's Alhamaret, and he sort of inspired me to make this deck to begin with. He's not coming out, but I don't feel any particular way about including him or not including him. So if you're looking for a card to maybe cut for a new Sphinx when it comes out, that might be one of the ones to cut. But oh boy, let me tell you about one of my favorite ones in this deck because it gets so ridiculous, and that's Sphinx Mindbreaker. It's a 7 mana 6/6. When it enters the battlefield, each opponent, by the way, puts the top 10 cards of their library into their graveyard. So I actually had a game recently where we decided to call it a draw. The game went on for like an hour and a half. And I was on my last turn, which took 10 minutes. My turn was literally 10 minutes long because I was trying to figure out, can I deck everybody out simultaneously without decking myself out because of the Unesh trigger of me blinking this back in with like our blink package I showed you earlier. And I think you know the result. We called it a tie because I ended up deleting everybody's library. I blinked this guy like a bunch of times. I have cards in here that make copies of things like when they enter or are cast. So I had copies of this guy on the battlefield, and I was just eliminating people's libraries just out of nowhere. Everybody was just smiling, watching me mill out their deck, everyone's deck simultaneously. They thought it was hilarious. And I think that's sort of the problem with like mill in a lot of cases is it's selective. You choose a player to mill out and then you mill the next one, but this card mills everybody. So it's sort of a group effort to either say we have to stop Kyle from what he's doing, or we just find it so funny we want to see if he can actually do it. And I think that that's a really fun place to be in a group where everybody's sort of rooting for you to mill the whole table out at one time. And a Sphinx tribal deck that's budget, like it's really quite hilarious. And I ended up getting to the point where I only had like 2 cards left. So I had to do one more blink of this to delete everyone's library, meaning I didn't have any cards on my next upkeep. I don't know. So technically, I guess I won, but I think that everybody was just like, let's call it a draw, and I was very happy with the draw after, milling everybody's library out with this guy. And I think that if I hadn't milled certain pieces, I would have been able to close it out in a more, what's the right word? In a more unanimous faction. I wouldn't have been able to do it otherwise without having key cards. And I just had enough. If I had a little bit more, I would have been able to make it so everybody lost for sure before I did. But still a cool piece. I think it's a really neat card to include in your deck and acts as an alternative win condition, apparently. The last thing that I want to talk about is just your sort of style, your play experience with this deck. It can be drastically different depending on the support pieces that you put in it. So for me, I went with like my Blink package, but I also included cards in here that I literally have never played anywhere else. And I just want to talk about them because they've actually put in some really good work for me. So first off, Kefnet's Monument is just a powerhouse in this deck. Not only is it a cost reducer for your blue creature spells, which you have like 30 of, it also taps down your creature's things just like a Junk Winder does. And they don't untap during the next untap step. So you can sort of control the flow of the game, and you get to tap down, it's just creatures unfortunately, but you get to control the flow of the game and prevent incoming damage or tap down people's mana dorks so that way they can't accelerate as fast. It sort of works as a stopper valve in a way for the game, and I found that it's been very effective for me, at least just for the cost reduction even, but it also helps in the other capacities as well. In addition, I was sorting through a bulk box and came across this card, and I've always loved the art of like the little illithid and what is that? Like I don't even know what this is, to be honest with you, but it's Runaway Together. It's a 2-mana instant. Choose 2 target creatures controlled by different players. Return those creatures to their owner's hands. Let me give you 2 scenarios. Scenario 1. I have 2 opponents that have problem pieces out on the board that I want dealt with. I wait till the end step of my opponent's turn preceding me, and then I cast this card, allowing me to effectively remove the threats off the table before it gets back to my turn. Super good. The other situation that comes up, I have 2 mana available and somebody is about to destroy my commander and something else, and maybe Unesh has been removed twice already, meaning he's going to be 10 dang mana to recast. This saves you from that. It allows you to return Unesh to your hand to eliminate the commander tax, meaning you still get to play Unesh and have your cake, because most of the time Unesh reduces the cost enough to allow you to then play another Sphinx, triggering his ability, etc., etc., etc. So this card is actually quite good. It also allows you just to return a random Sphinx to your hand that has an ETB, like our guy that we just talked about, and then abuse it again if you so choose. It's been a very versatile card, and I'm actually surprised more people don't include this. It's been really good for me. I think if you have ETBs in your deck, or you care at all about it, or you just want a budget removal option that doesn't feel terrible, it's a really good option, and I've been really happy with it. So I really think that if you want like a 5-cent card to replace sort of his box standard rapid hybridization or whatever, this will do it for you. And the last card was one that I hemmed and hawed over. I am such a stickler about efficiency and card choices, and I've never been able to justify Flow of Knowledge. It's a 5-mana instant, and it says draw a card for each island you control and then discard 2 cards. So I've always been on the fence about it because I feel like I've never been able to properly cost reduce this card, and I feel like I have better options at my fingertips, right? But when I can't play any of the heavier hitting draw spells in a deck, not only that, like when I don't really need them, I almost just want more card choice, right? So being able to play this when I have 10 islands out or more because I have ways to ramp islands out in the deck, it all of a sudden becomes really good, fills your hand, and then you can ditch key cards to the graveyard to later abuse with some of our graveyard strategies in the deck. I found that actually, especially because it's instant speed, it allows me to dig for counter spells. It allows me to fill my hand before my turn, which then leads to crazier things on my subsequent turns. It's actually been pretty good. Is it incredible? No. Am I going to be playing it in anything outside of a mono blue deck? No. But for what it is and what it does, it's pretty good. I think that if you're looking, again, for a very budgetary, spell in a mono blue deck, it's actually pretty decent. And for us, because we want to discard, it makes it that much better. So I would give it a try if you haven't, just to see what your experience is like. It's going to force you to play a little bit slower, but I find that in Commander, I've been enjoying that style a bit more myself. Playing slow and then accelerating for the win right at the end. Now, I could go on and I could talk about all of the nuanced includes in here, including my land interaction, my ramp that I decided to include. I have certain cards in here that are more stapley, like Windfall, for instance, all of that type of stuff. But at the end of the day, I think that you just have to take a look at my list that I have up and give it a try. Maybe cut elegant, I guess, but besides that, I would keep most of it intact and I would give it a chance, because I feel like almost every game I've had with this deck, it's been a game. I don't feel like I'm trying to run up from behind. I don't feel like I'm completely out and removed from the game. And I think that's just a result of the commander. Once I reach my commander, I'm able to effectively get my game plan rolling, because not only do I have cost reduction, I also get the immediate card selection from the mini factor fiction that the commander gives me. And that's just incredible value. So if you're looking for a blue value-based commander that doesn't feel like you're breaking the game, and moreover, a very cheap tribal commander that you could honestly build for probably less than $50 and have an effective build, Unesh is the guy for you. Just make sure that you leave out some of those stacks pieces that will upset everybody else at the table. But otherwise, throw 30 islands in here and then a few utility lands like a terrain generator, right? And then just have a good time playing this deck. Have a good time playing with your friends and having more games that are actual games. That's what I've been doing, and I'm not going to look back. This deck is great. It's going to definitely remain on my roster for quite a long time, and I hope that you guys give it a chance as well and get to see the power of the Sphinx Tribal Commander. And that's it. I'm expecting one of my friends in literal minutes. Normally I have like a call to action at the end to subscribe or whatever, but really all I want you to do today is try this deck out. And when you're done with this video, I want you just to text somebody, call them, talk to them, whatever it is, somebody that you really care about, and just tell them that you love them. Just spread a little bit of positivity today and play some games with your friends and have a great time. I've been Kyle, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks for your patience on waiting for this video, and I'll see you later. Bye.